Good morning. A little delay getting started here. Mr. Cranmer took a little tumble in the parking lot, and the Cheryl Slind, who's trained, is looking at him, and the deputy who's on duty and on this floor is taking a look at him, and probably he's going to just need to be spend a few minutes sitting in a chair, but possibly go talk to a doctor. So I think we'll get started without him. This morning our invocation is being led by Deacon Ken Schaefer of St. Patrick's Catholic Church here in Hudson. After Deacon Schaefer leads us in the invocation, then we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance together. Shall we stand?
Thank you. Let's just take a moment to center ourselves on our Lord. Blessed are you, Lord, God of all creation, whose goodness fills our hearts with joy. Blessed are you who have brought us together this day to work in harmony and peace. Strengthen us with your grace and wisdom, for you are God forever and ever. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, at this time, the judges are here and ready to administer the oath of office. And since, no doubt, litigants and lawyers and witnesses and everybody else are waiting for them to get back into their courtrooms, let's, if you want to follow along, each of you should have an official oath of office form, which you can read from or follow along as the judges lead you. We'll all stand for that, and after that, please sign it and turn it in.
Swear that I will support. Why do we do it?
Repeat.
Repeat after us. Here we go again.
Just repeat.
I state your name. Swear that I will support.
Swear that I will support
The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin. And will faithfully and impartially. Discharge the duties. Of the office of County Board Supervisor. To the best of my ability. So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And again, on behalf of Judge Lindell and Black, congratulations on being elected to what we think is the best county board in the state of Wisconsin. With all sincerity, we look forward to to build on that partnership that we've developed over the last number of years with this body, and we look forward sincerely again to working with you. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Your Honors, I would just like to add a PS and the best judicial group in the state of Wisconsin.
Thank you.
If you would sign those and pass them down to your right. Did you bring in Amy to collect these things? Amy's here. Amy will collect them.
The certificates are theirs.
Now this, well, the next thing is a roll call, and besides that, Cindy has all kinds of announcements to make, both now and later on. Why don't you talk about the certificates and so on?
And you should all have a certificate of election on your desk. That's yours to keep. Don't need to turn that in. So, I'll start with the roll call then. Okay. Roll call, Dan Rabel.
Present?
Alfred Schrank. Julie Spear. Joe Hurchin.
Here.
Bill Peavy.
Here.
Gerald Peterson.
Here.
Charlie Grant.
Here.
Roger Larson.
Here.
Richard King.
Here.
Frederick Horn.
Here.
John Mortensen.
Here.
Esther Wentz. Jean Ritz.
Here.
David Peterson.
Here.
David Osnes.
Here.
Lauren Sather.
Here.
Richard Marzoff.
Here.
Sharon Norton Bauman. Peter Post is absent. Roger Repholz.
Here.
Bill Cranmer is absent. Daryl Standifer.
Here.
John Borup.
Here.
Clarence Malik.
Here.
Steve Hermson.
Here.
Kenneth Colby.
Here.
Cindy Leonard. Linda Lucky. Shane Demuling.
Here.
Laura Gunderson.
We have a vacancy in District 8. The person who was elected by a write-in by 2 votes decided not to take the position, and so we have then 2 members absent. Mr. Post had a conflict that he told us about in advance, and Mr. Cranmer is recuperating, we hope, well. So there are 28 of us present. Next is the presentation of plaques to departing county supervisors. I received an email from former County Supervisor Raymond, saying that he regrets he'll be unable to attend the board meeting. He is committed to attend an out-of-town shareholder meeting that happens to be on the same day. And he goes on to say, please, on my behalf, extend my thanks to the people of St. Croix County for permitting me to be of service for the last decade, and my thanks to the members of the board for their friendship and support during my tenure on the board. I wish the new board the very best as they deal with the future of our county. Let's see, I know we have, I see a couple back there. Where do you have those? Right here? All right. Would you like to participate in handing out the plaques? Okay. Would the supervisors who are here to receive their plaques care to come up and do that? And prepare to say a few, what shall we ask for? A few profound things?
I just want to say I've enjoyed working with all of you for the last 10 years, and I will miss you. And the next years are going to be, there'll be a lot of things happening, everyone knows, budget-wise and otherwise, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Lois. Try to match that.
I don't have a whole lot to say, but it was enjoyable working for you, worked with you the last 4 years. Thank you.
Are these in some sort of order?
Yeah, the one on top of the other.
Brian pointed out to me that they were Supervisor 1 and Supervisor 2. I think he thought there was some special significance to those numbers. So let that inspire the new Supervisors 1 and 2 to high achievement, huh? All right. Mr. Whiting, are you ready to give your report?
Well, good morning, excuse me, and welcome, particularly you new supervisors, and certainly nice to see some familiar faces in the group as well. Just quickly, You have a lot of things to go through today, I understand. We did have our orientation last week and our tour of county facilities. Many of the new supervisors were able to make that. A few did not make the tour. If you have an interest in that, I can talk to you after the meeting, and we can see if we can arrange some time with you. And again, if there's any questions from those who missed either one of the two, feel free to give me a call, and we'll get you caught up to speed. On the agenda today, you're going to see an item on some security measures for the Government Center building and the facility up in New Richmond. These are coming to the board from the Finance Committee. These are items that were not budgeted. The Finance Committee felt that it warranted coming to the board to explain and go over these with you. If you have any concerns, we can certainly address them. There's some equipment in particular that would help in the security and ability to respond to a situation in the building. Some of you are aware we had a lockdown back in February. Some of these things were being looked at well before that. They hadn't made it into the budget process yet, but here they are today. Another thing you may have caught from the Finance Committee minutes, or if you were at the meeting last week, we have a chiller issue in this building. Part of our heating and air cooling system is down, and we are been looking at some alternatives for replacing this rather expensive piece of equipment. One option that is being seriously considered, at least at the finance level, before it comes to the board, is a geothermal plant that would help heat and cool the building. This involves doing some boring outside, and I won't go through the mechanics of it, but we'll go through that with you if it gets that far. But in the next month or so, if you come to the Government Center and you see some equipment out on the grounds digging a hole, that's what that is. That is the initial test bore that is being drilled to see what the underground is like and whether it would support such a system. If a system like that was put in, it would be expensive to do, but the cost for heating and cooling the building would go down dramatically. You should have had on your desk today a packet prepared by Marilyn Pash, who is the facilitator for next Monday's goal-setting session. I have also included in there a map on how to get to the Cashman Center at the WITC campus in New Richmond. If you don't know where it is, it's on the main street in New Richmond, the North-South Street, Knowles, on the south side of town, on the west side of the street there. You'll see a sign for it. We'll start at 8:30. We've got it going until 4:30, but if you're good and you get everything done ahead of time, we'll let you go early. This is a little bit different than what has been done in the past, where the board shows up and we start discussing what goals you may have. Many of you have had a chance to hear from the facilitator, and she's compiled some of the comments that have been made in here. There is a letter to you in the inside flap that asks a few questions for you to consider in preparation for the meeting. The idea being that if we get into the meeting, you can actually perhaps get a little bit further than what we've gotten on some of these efforts in the past. There's the administration committee has been working on this. One item to note, you're not going to see a lot in this book on the nursing home issue. The feeling from the administration committee was that whether you've been on the board or you're now on the board, and you'll be seeing plenty of the nursing home issue. The concern was having that dominate the day's proceedings. Certainly an important issue, but it's not the only issue. So you're not going to see a lot in there, and you may not actually be asked to spend a lot of time on that on Monday. Now, after you go through your elections today, I'm looking at 29 prospective board chairs right now. Somebody needs to put it on their calendar that the WCA has its West Regional meeting on the 28th in Eau Claire. Typically, the chair at least goes to that. Sometimes there's some additional board members. It kind of depends on who gets elected. I usually go to that. It's done for the new chairs. You'll go to this meeting and you'll hear from the WCA staff about state issues, and you'll also be asked to select some leadership from the region. So that will be on Monday the 28th. Now next month, as you get into your committees, we will be coming at you fairly quickly with the 2009 budget. There'll be a couple of things to be taking into account at your committee meetings. We will try to have your department heads prepared with what they have been viewing as their prospective capital outlay plan items. They will also share with you their department missions and business responsibilities. Some of you are familiar with those, to see if those need to be reviewed, changed, modified, what have you, going into the budget process. Certainly nothing has to be acted on or voted on, but it's one of the first steps in getting prepared for the 09 budget, which will be on us very quickly. So finally, for those of you who are new and do not have a badge yet, this is an identification badge that you can use as a county board member. Proceed across the hall, go in the administrative suites. First door on your right, Carol Lewis will be happy to take your picture and put together a card for you. It takes about as long as it took me to tell you about it. If you are an existing board member who have lost your badge, you feel free to step in line and do it again.
Well, actually, Chuck, the existing cards have an expiration date, so everybody
has to
needs
do
to
it.
get one. Yep.
Okay, then you all have to do it whether you've lost them or not. So look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Mr. Whiting, don't run yet. This is your moment to be grilled. Or
For sale if anybody wants
don't put it on eBay. And I don't imagine Dana will put it on the county website for sale either. Any questions for Chuck? Well, I guess you get off easily. Okay, reviewing our agenda, I guess it would be my hope that we'll be out of here by 11 o'clock. The major business to be done is elections and some old and new business items, 4 items down there that you see. After we elect committees, the new chair should make an effort to appoint a person as convener of each committee. So help the chair remember to get that job done so that there's somebody who is responsible for making sure there's an agenda and a room and a time, and that the word gets out to all the committee members to get things started up until the committee holds its election of officers, Then there will be somebody else ready to take over. That being said, I guess we're ready for the consent agenda. The way the consent agenda works is that we have a list of items here which we can pass on a single motion, but if any single supervisor wants to pull out an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and a separate vote, we honor that. So, does anybody have anything they want to pull out from the consent agenda? Mr. Marzoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under old and new business, item 2, on the right-hand side of that sentence, the word election is there. I'm not sure if I'm correct in this assumption, but it seems to me that that word should be referendum. And if that was the intent, I respectfully ask that the word election be deleted and replaced by advisory referendum.
That's a good point, and I thought I made that point to the clerk's office earlier. But you're right. It certainly is the result of last month's board meeting was to set up a referendum, and we'll talk about that more later in the day. Ms. Norton-Baumann?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spoke with the clerk earlier this morning. I believe there's one error in the minutes from last meeting, the county board minutes. Mr. Troyer, who sat next to me, I know was not here during the whole meeting. So I'd like to ask that somehow that.
So he actually didn't sit next to you.
No, he did not. I'd just like to ask that that be corrected.
Let's consider that change made, right, Cindy? This has been a bad time for your office, hasn't it? All these elections and things going on. Yeah. Mr. Mortensen?
On page 6 of the minutes, right at the top paragraph there, it mentions about appointing a 5-person ad hoc committee to draft the exact words of the referendum. Has that been done?
Oh, Mr. Mortensen, that is item number 2 under old and new business for today's discussion. The administration committee, to whom that was referred, has a recommendation to make for this body to debate and decide about. All right. Then with the change to note that Mr. Troyer was in fact absent, we're ready for the consent agenda. Anybody have the motion? Mr. Ritz is moving the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Sather. Discussion. All in favor, please vote aye. Aye. And opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. Notice that the May meeting is an evening meeting, one of those few meetings that we have each year that are scheduled in the evening. We have no appointments to announce this month, so that item is blank, and we're ready to work on the election of officers and elected committees. First job is to appoint 2 tellers. The chair would appoint Mr. Timmerman and Mr. Whiting to do that. Is Chuck... Well, if Chuck's not here until he returns, would you be the second one, Sheriff? To help with the count of votes? Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Timmerman and the Sheriff, Mr. Hillstead, until Mr. Whiting returns. Next, I should appoint a chair pro tem to conduct the election of the county board chair. I would appoint you, Mr. King, if you're willing to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to retire to the floor, anticipating that my name would be put in nomination, and you feel free to.
I'll call for nominations for chairman. Darrell?
Chairman Pro Tem, I'm pleased to place in nomination the name of Clarence Malik.
Clarence Malik, are you going to get up there, Chuck, and write those down? Oh, okay. Clarence Malik. Oh, are there any other nominations? Sharon?
Mr. Chairman Pro Tem, I put into nomination the name of Roger Rebholz.
Roger Rebholz. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Doesn't seem to be any, so we'll vote.
Do you want us to respond to the questions, Mr. Chairman?
What was that?
Do you want us to respond to the questions from the bylaws?
These questions that come back are supposed to be responded to by the nominees. If the board wants to dispense with that, they could vote to dispense. Otherwise, you should have them.
I think they should do it or not.
Probably.
Okay.
We'll let the two nominees respond to the question. And Mr. Malik can go first.
This only happens every 2 years, so it's hard to keep it straight, but the clerk is a great help in copying the agenda from 2 years ago and making sure we stay on track. The first of the questions is, as county board chair, what will be your major objectives and priorities? If I'm elected county board chair, the first task would be to make the best possible committee appointments. I think that getting committees that have people who can work successfully together, who are balanced, who have the skills and talents necessary is one of the earliest, most important functions that a county board chair conducts or has to accomplish. My second major objective and priority would be to have effective meetings. I know that some of you think I push too hard, too rapidly, to get a vote on matters, but I know that others of you think that I move too slowly and let too many people talk for too long. That's a balance that's a hard one to maintain, but I believe strongly in majority rule, but balanced by the rights of minority members. And so effective meetings, following Robert's rules and our bylaws and respecting all speakers is a key thing. My third major objective and priority would be economic growth of this county. We are clearly facing a challenge here that we have not faced in 30 years in terms of the economic growth of this county. Now, we're not alone because other places around this nation, probably this whole world, are under economic stress. But we have very slow housing starts. We have carpenters, plumbers, electricians, masons, all kinds of folks who work in the housing industry and the construction industry who are underemployed, and that is severe. You all know that we've got foreclosures going on. A part of the answer, I think, is to continue to get businesses to move into our county as they have in the past, to try to keep that sort of flow going of good-paying jobs, of construction work, and the like. So I was chosen by the other board chairs of the 10-county region here in west central Wisconsin to be on the board of directors of a new economic development corporation named Momentum West. For the moment, it's named Momentum West. It was the old Momentum 21, and then it was called Momentum Chippewa Valley, and it served the three counties at the midsection of the Chippewa Valley for over a decade and helped to stimulate their economic growth. It has now expanded to the 10-county area, and they sought to have one county board chair and one municipal chair and others from representing other disciplines and interests for a total board of 21 people. And when they asked me, I agreed to do that for a year, and I agreed to be the secretary, and the elections are supposed to be next month. If I'm not chair, of course, I'll leave that because I think what they need on that group is a chair from the 10-county area. But the work of economic development is much more critical and important in these next 2 years than it has been, as I say, for probably 30 years. The next major objective and priority would be this incident command system for emergency readiness. I've taken the base courses and the first of the advanced courses, in other words, 700, 100, 200, and 300, and I'm signed up to take course 400 starting tomorrow night and running for 3 successive Wednesday nights at the Baldwin Fire Hall, 4 hours a time. That's a part of those people who might be called on to take leadership roles during a major disaster type of emergency to understand what's called the incident command system, which is a nationwide system of a common terminology, principles, and organization table roles for the people who have to perform. Now, I don't imagine that the county board chair is likely to be the incident commander. That would be an extremely rare system, except on a relief basis. The kinds of disasters that we would have in this county would usually be led either by the sheriff or by one of the municipal leaders or by the public health nurse, depending on the nature of the emergency. But those people can't be expected to function for 24 hours on 24 hours on 24 hours in a major event. And so they will need relief, and that is what the county board chair should be prepared to provide, in my opinion. And then lastly, of the major objectives and priorities, I think the board chair needs to help us keep our focus on whatever our goals are as determined in next Monday's goal-setting session. Not that the county board chair can make those goals happen or anything like that. We don't operate with that kind of a model, but the county board chair can keep reminding people, can keep focus on those goals, and should do so, in my opinion. This goal-setting session is far and away the most ambitious we've had. Remember that 6 years ago and prior to that, we had no goal-setting sessions, no strategic planning. And we were with the majority of counties that didn't do that kind of thing. But we have taken small incremental steps, and this year with Marilyn Pash and all this organization and the notebook for our homework, we're setting out in a really ambitious fashion, and I hope that we come up with good, realistic goals that meet the SMART categories so that they're likely to be translated into actual decision-making. The second question is if you are elected, are there things you will try to change or do differently as county board chair? Well, there are just two things that I think of under this category, and the first is I'm as annoyed as anybody about delayed minutes of committee meetings. Our bylaws are clear about that. And the reason, it's hard to think of a good reason why committee meeting minutes should be delayed month after month getting to board members. And once in a while we have staffing crunches that can cause a delay for a month or something like that. But I have been annoyed in the past, and I don't think that should continue. My second suggestion of something that I would suggest to change is to revert to something that used to be done by this county board pretty regularly, which was committee reports. On our agenda, down low in the agenda, we have carried for a long time this department and committee reports. And we've gotten used to the idea that departments come in and report. And today you've got some department reports that were handed out in advance and so on. But what has been lacking, I think, are committee reports. And I think that we ought to get back on track with that. I would suggest, but it's up to you, of course, but I would suggest that the chairs of the committees be invited to speak on a rotating basis. For sure, so that each committee comes up twice a year, and the committee chair stands up here and gives a report about what they're planning to do, so that it doesn't fall as a surprise on board members when it shows up later. And then they should be free to give reports on a regular basis. I remember when I chaired the building committee that built this building, I gave a report every month. Now, we don't build a $12 million building every term, so that's an unusual kind of thing, and there were decisions that needed to be made. But I thought it doesn't have to be long, but it ought to be there, I think. I'd recommend that we strongly consider that. Can't do it unless you want to, of course, but that would be my recommendation. And the last question, I'm sorry to be so long, but there are some things on my heart. It says, how would you describe the style you will use in working with your fellow supervisors, county committees, and county staff? I think the key thing about style is really just two things. Balanced, I mentioned earlier, majority rule, but rights of the minority. This county is a diverse county. We have east-west, we have north-south, we have young-old, we have male-female. We have all kinds of ways in which people are different, and balance is a key to consensus and success, I think. And then my last point is patience. I think it's clear, people want to be heard. They need to be heard. A part of inclusiveness is hearing people. I know that when we started this last term into the nursing home issues, there was a great concern among employees and many of the members of the public and some of the supervisors at the time that we would rush to a decision. Well, we did not, and I don't think we should have. I think that our deliberate process where our microphone was available according to the bylaws, and there was plenty of time for letters to the editor and discussion and new ideas getting onto the table, is the right way to make difficult decisions. So patience is I think, a key thing, and if I'm elected, I intend to exercise it. Sorry for being so long. Thanks for listening.
Roger?
I got the book. I would like to just take number one first and say, as County Board Chair, what will be your major objectives and priorities? And it's really relatively short. As a board chair, our major objectives will be toward adjusting operations to meet current economic conditions. If we've got a problem out here, then and they are economically affecting the county, we better be moving ahead of those economic conditions wherever possible. Buck mentioned foreclosures as a good example, and we've got to do something. We've got to be ahead of it because it's going to affect this county. If you are elected, are there things that you will try to change or do differently as a county board chair? I'd answer that in this way. I am going to try to build a more cohesive, work-together board, trying to keep everyone informed as to what is going on as much as possible. I'm always reminded when I read a question like that of my mother's comments. My mother used to say, and she'd say it often to 10 children, what people are not in on, they're down on. And so the committee chairs and the chairman of the board, or the chairman of this board, have a necessary commitment to keep everyone informed of what's going on. And I know that of anything that I've heard the last few years is there's been some problems in getting that communication out. The key here is to how are we going to get it done? The objective is still the same. We must get it done. And also in that area, as board chair, I feel that if it is working, don't fix it. If it needs fixing, get it done. We need to change conditions according to what's going on in our country. Cost of operations are going to eat us up if we don't adjust for that. And that we do as we need to do it and try to be ahead of the curve. My working with fellow supervisors and committees, the question says, how would you describe the style you will use in working with your fellow supervisors, the county committees and county staffs? And I say simply this, that my style of working with fellow supervisors, committees, and county staff would be to be open and honest, no matter what the consequences are in all matters which affect them and their jobs or county operations. Again, if it is working, why change it? If it needs adjustment, then work with the committee and the area of operations that may need to be readjusted. I spent 30 years of my life working in industry, in management in industry, and with a number of employees under me. And I can honestly say that you had trouble always when you didn't keep them informed. Sometimes you had people you didn't want to keep informed, and that happens too. But you need to make that adjustment also. But we need to keep each other informed and work together and pull together. There isn't any one or any 5-member group in this board that are pulling this wagon alone. We're all pulling it. We all have to answer to the voter that voted us into office. And that sums up about where I'm at.
Let you announce it, and I will clear right here.
Vote Malik 8, Roger Rebels 20. Roger's the new chair. You have to come up in front, Roger, and take over the meeting.
Let me say congratulations to Roger, and thank you all for the privilege of being your chair for the last 6 years.
Well, first I'd like to say thanks to Buck Malik for the job that Buck has done. We've had some differences of opinion We've not been afraid back and forth to express those differences of opinion, but Buck's been an asset to this chair, and I'm very proud that I had the opportunity to work with him. I can't bring some of the same credentials to this spot as he can, and that's why you're going to be part of this. Every single one of us is going to be doing this job because we have to. Buck wasn't kidding when he started talking, when he talked about what was going to happen to the economy of this area. He appointed me to the EDC committee a number of years ago, and I've been working closely with that committee on business in St. Croix County, and I can tell you that it's changing quickly and dramatically. So it's going to affect every one of our positions, every one of our jobs, and it's going to affect mainly the dollars that are pouring into this county. And we're going to be forced with the adjustment of cutting our costs to meet that, and we can't kid ourselves. We have to address that right quickly, because we're going to have to cut our cost to meet those reductions in income. The next order of business then will be to I've got to double check this because you're new on the board, you're new on the floor. You think you know what you're doing and you don't. Okay. The first order of business then is to elect the five members to the Finance Committee. Oh, excuse me. We need to first then elect the vice chair. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Dick King.
Dick King? Second? Dick King has been nominated. Mr. Standifer.
I place in nomination the name of Clarence Malik.
Is there a second to that nomination? It's been seconded. Okay. Okay. Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations will then be closed and we'll vote. You can see on the board, the vote came out 21 for Dick King, 7 for Buck Malik. Thank you. Now I can start where I tried to start before. Yes.
I was just thinking, we have so many new people, it might be a good idea for the committee elections to have people stand up and say who they are and maybe why they think they're qualified for the committee.
Thank you for the suggestion. It's a good one. So when the name is called, let's have everyone stand, or have the person that was called stand, so everyone knows who they're voting for. We'll now open the nominations for that. We're nominating 5 people for the Finance Committee.
I nominate Supervisor Sharon anyway.
Sharon Norton Bauman.
Roger. I'd like to nominate Esther Wendt.
John?
Nominate Buck Malik.
Want us to stand up now?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who made the last nomination?
John Mortensen made the motion for Buck Malik. Are there any other nominations?
Two more.
I gotta have 2 more. Yeah, yes, Esther.
I nominate Lauren Sather.
Lauren Sather has been nominated. Lauren, would you stand up? I think everybody knows you, but we better make sure.
It could be more than 5 nominations.
Yeah. Yes, Cindy.
I nominate Darrell Standifer.
Darrell Standifer has been nominated. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Dan Rabel.
Dan Rabel has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations? Yeah, we have in nomination Sharon Norton Bauman, who you saw stand up before in the first one. We have Mrs. Wentz. Esther Wentz is on, or is a nominee. Buck Malik, of course, and you know Buck. Lauren Sather stood up. Darrell Standifer in the back stood up, and Dan Rabel in the middle here. Okay.
Do you want to obey that process because the members of this committee shall be elected by secret ballot? Supervisors may vote for up to 5 nominees, and that's what some of the rules and bylaws if you want to read that.
Okay. I'm just going to take a minute and read this to you. Members of all of these committees, the Finance, the Agricultural and Extension Committee, the Transportation Committee, and the Public Protection Committee, these members shall be elected by secret ballot immediately after the election of officers. Supervisors may vote for up to 5 nominees. If less than 5 nominees receive a majority on the first ballot, there would have to be a second ballot, on which supervisors may vote for the remaining nominees up to the number of seats on the committee not yet filled. The second ballot procedure will be repeated if necessary until all the committee seats are filled. In this case, you can see there's no problem. We had 6 nominees. Yes. Buck?
Roger, I think Ms. Lucky's suggestion was that each person not only stand, but say a few words about their qualifications, and we didn't quite do that yet. Before we vote, wouldn't that be a good idea?
Thank you, Buck. There's no problem with that. Would we start with Sharon? Would you state your qualifications?
Hi, I represent District 19 in Hudson, and I come with a background of having owned and operated both a farm and a large retail grocery store for a number of years. I've also been in real estate. I've been a businesswoman my whole life. I've handled personnel issues. I've handled construction issues in the businesses I've been in, and I believe that my adult background in the business world, and also having served on a school board and many church boards and 4-H boards and all kinds of places where people make decisions, I believe that that background could be brought to the Finance Committee and be put to some good use for this county. Thank you.
I'm a retired educator. I spent 36 years in the classroom. I have been on numerous boards in the city of New Richmond. I represent District 13 in the city of New Richmond. I have served on quite a few of the boards in the city, including planning and the Planning Commission. I've been on the Hockey Arena Board. I was chairperson of the Parks Department for a number of years. I feel that the county is going to face a lot of things, and I feel that we need to have voices that are not afraid to be spoken. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people that tends to speak a lot. So I'll quit now. Thank you.
You've probably heard enough about me, and I handed out my resume. I've been 6 years on the Finance Committee.
Daryl, would you, the new people and, Lauren, you first.
I'm easy to forget.
Oh, I don't
Having just retired from the county as a department head, I've been involved with the finances and the budget and aware of what goes on, and I'd just like to be a part of that. I think I've got some unique insights because I have been involved with it, and I'd be proud to serve. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. I'm Darrell Stanifer. I currently serve as Vice Chair of the Finance Committee. I've been on the County Board since 1994. During that period of time, I've served as Chair of Personnel, Chair of Administration, and now I'm on Finance. I'm a commercial banker by career, and I would appreciate an opportunity to again serve you on Finance.
Dan Rabel, representing District 1, served in District 14. Sorry about that. Dan Rabel, serving District 1, once served District 14. Come up with I could come up with a list, but I'm not going to do that. But I've been known to get water out of rocks. When things are tight, I have an eye for seeing where things are at. So, and I really have a concern with what we talk about the economics of St. Croix County, about a lot of cuts possibly, a lot of tight areas, and I seem to have an eye for that stuff. So, thanks.
Remember, you're voting for only 5 people.
guess as we're waiting, I'm just going to, for some of the new people, which we didn't explain this to, is the sound system. That when you're going to speak, you need to turn on your microphone and you're sharing with someone. So if you're going to speak, to turn on your microphone, that not only helps us hear and in the back, but it also picks up on the sound system here and on the cable TV. So I control the sound system with my finger. Either I point at the microphone to remind you to turn it on, or else I'm turning this one on or off. So just a reminder to turn that on and then shut it off when you're done.
everyone has a majority, so we only need to vote on one ballot, and you can see the majority there. We have Mrs. Norton Bauman, Mrs. Wentz, Buck Malik, Mr. Sather, Mr. Standifer will be the 5 candidates or the 5 people going on the Finance Committee. Okay. The next voting we will do will be for the area of transportation. And again, we're going to be voting for 5 people, so nominations are now open. Mr. Buzz.
I would like to nominate Gerald Peterson for the Transportation Committee.
Mrs. Wentz.
I'd like to nominate Dick King.
Mr. Peterson.
I'd like to nominate Roger Rebels.
Mr. Grant.
Nominate Al Schrank.
Al Schrank has been nominated. Mr. Peavy.
I'd like to nominate Joe Hurchin.
Joe Hurchin.
I'd like to nominate Shane Demling.
Demling is going to.
I nominate Charlie Grant.
Charlie Grant's been nominated. Are there any other nominations now? 1, 2. How many do we have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? If not, nominations are closed. Again, let's have that group stand up, if they will. If they will all stand, and then, well, first we'll have Charlie Grant stand up.
Yeah.
You can if you want, sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been on the county board 24 years, 24 years on the transportation committee. And I was 4 years as a state police officer, 16 years as sheriff for the county. I worked for the county highway department for 7 years running heavy equipment, the United States Air Force 51 to 54, and I graduated from Baldwin High School. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson.
That's really hard to follow. I've been on the Highway Committee for 4 years, and the skill that I bring to the Highway Committee is a result of spending 23 years in the U.S. Army Reserve Corps of Engineers, and then I also retired as a school administrator.
Mr. King.
I've been on the county board since 1990. I've been chairman of the Transportation Committee for the last 8 years, and I was on that for 4 years before that. I was in World War II for 2.5 years in the South Pacific. I think the Transportation Committee is going smoothly. Thank you.
I'll speak, of course, for myself. I was on the Highway Committee, Transportation Committee in the early 90s when I was on the board here, and then I went back on the Highway Committee when I came back onto the board here 5 years ago. So I've been on it now the last 3 years here. So that's kind of my background as far as the highway. Mr. Schrank, would you?
I'm Alfred Schrank. I represent District 2. I haven't been on the county board. I've been on the Department of Aging Committee on the county board. I was on the Glenwood City Council for 28 years. I was on most of those years I was chairman of the street committee, and my responsibility was check out the streets, make sure that they were seal coated and the ones blacktopping and checking into the maintenance of the street. I was on the equipment end of the committee, and that was my responsibility on that was to
help buy trucks, pickups, and we bought a grader. When we bought the truck, we were responsible for the snowplow and the sanders on the truck. I was in the United States Marine Corps, and I graduated from Hammond High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfie. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Urchin.
I'm George from east town here, down by Woodville, District 4, farmer. Been on the Baldwin Town Board since '79. I got to be supervisor, got to be chairman in '91. Still there, nobody booed me out yet. Been on this board now for 2 years, coming up my second term. I enjoy it. But I'm involved with buying trucks and stuff for the township and fixing roads. I kind of know what it's about. Thank you.
Mr. Demolli.
My name's Shane Demling. I represent District 30. I also am a town supervisor for the town of Somerset. There I oversee the road crew. I help purchase our equipment, our salt, sand, all that other stuff. I also own a local landscape business, and I have grown up on a dairy farm. Thank you.
Charlie Gray.
Charlie, we've done this. Charlie.
I wanted to tell him.
Have him go again.
I wanted him to go again. Is
Okay.
Charlie talk?
Yeah, Charlie's talking. We're, go ahead and vote. The ballots are out. Yep. Well, while they are counting ballots, in your packets, I think today, or at least maybe in the mail to you, is a form that was sent out for county's board supervisor information, asking people to give their general information and to indicate what committees you'd like to serve on, because we'd appreciate you filling those in so that when we make the appointments on committees, we get you on a committee that you will enjoy working on, or something of that nature. But because we need to, in the next month, Dick King and I will need to get those appointments made.
those of you that have the badges right now, Carol in HR is just what she's going to do is just put a sticker over the date on that. So I could really just collect them now and bring them to Carol if you have them with. And she can do that while we're working on this.
The St. Croix County Department on Aging has a newspaper they publish monthly. And I'd just like to mention a couple of short articles they have on April. And it's marked, mark your calendars now for the Senior Citizen Center activities. This is in April. Mondays is rock climbing, extreme shuffleboard. Tuesdays is roller derby, ultimate frisbee, breakdancing, Red Rover marathon. Wednesdays is limbo contest, sumo wrestling. Thursdays is hang gliding, bungee jumping, and soccer. And they slow down on Friday to play bingo. And another article on the same page here is transportation program expands to include sedgeways. And there's 6 members listed here from Baldwin on the sedgeways. And they happen to be, I recognize 3 of them very easily: Gerald Peterson, Rich Peterson, and Art Jacobson. And the others are Doug Thompson, Claire Stein, and Hugh Bertelson. Recently, the Table of Knowledge Coffee Clutch, held in Baldwin, had one of their morning meetings on sedgeways. One member commented, "It wasn't easy to drink coffee and steer at the same time, but as we discussed politics, it sure was interesting to see who leaned to the left or leaned to the right."
Well, as you can see, the numbers written down, the 5 on that committee will be Gerald Peterson with 22 votes, Dick King with 25, Reb Holtz with 24, Shane Demling with 18, and Charlie Grant with 25. So Shane's the new member on the committee. With that, we'll take public protection, and we'll move right into the nominations. Mr. Peterson?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Julie Spear.
Spear. Linda?
I nominate Cindy Leonard.
Esther?
I nominate Roger Larson.
Roger Larson?
Mr. Chair, I nominate John Mortensen.
Is that by shrink?
That was Elfie Shrink, yeah. Mr. Malley?
I nominate John Bora.
Steve?
I'll nominate Ken Kobe.
Lauren?
I'll nominate Laura Gunderson.
Thank you. Would the people that, as you're called on, stand up? Julie, will you stand up so everyone knows who Julie is?
She has a microphone.
I'm Cindy Leonard, and I've been on the board for 2 terms, and I'm privileged to be representing District 28 for my 3rd term. I live in St. Joe Township for 23 years, raised 3 children, educated my children part of that time, and have been self-employed as a music and a language teacher, currently finishing my 2nd degree in Spanish this spring, so I'll be glad to get that done. My personal interest is mainly as a citizen wanting our community to be viable and healthy community. Raising children, you're really aware of what's going on crime-wise and in the legal areas. And I spent 10 years in a law firm, so I had some exposure to legal issues through college. And then I know one of my first job interests was to be a law officer. I did not do that, but it's always been interesting to me. I receive prayer requests from the jail. I want to keep in touch with the lifeblood of our community and restorative issues that are going on in legal matters. So I'd appreciate your support.
Roger Larson?
Roger Larson, District 9. And I served on the Starford Village Board for 14 years. 12 years of that I was the village president. And I worked very close with our police department and our streets and everything down there. Over those years, I was really interested in what was going on with the police department and making sure we had up-to-date equipment all the time. And we were actually ahead of about all the county's departments with our little village. We stayed ahead of that with the technology to keep them up to date with everything they had in their car, their types of cars. And personally, I worked for 38 years for Doughboy Packaging. 19 of those years, I was the maintenance supervisor down there, so I worked very closely with safety, with everything going on in the departments to the building, not only in Richmond. We had several facilities out of state, too. So I've worked with a lot of that over the years, and I'm just very concerned with public safety. And I guess that's all I have to say. So, thank you.
Mr. Mortensen?
I'm John Mortensen, and I've been on the county board 14 years. I was 40 years at the Anderson Corporation. 9 of those years as quality assurance or inspector that way. I was on 2 school boards in Maplewood prior to moving to St. Croix County. I was a Boy Scout leader. My son is an Eagle Scout leader, or an Eagle Scout, and I've been on several committees here in the past, and I was just elected last month to replace on the public protection, so I would appreciate your consideration.
Mr. Borup.
Thank you, Roger. I'm John Borup, District 24 from North Hudson. This is my second term on the county board. I have retired from 37 years of public service, almost 17 as the county's Health and Human Services Director. Of those 37 years, I had just about 5 years as a state probation and parole agent. I've always had an interest in public safety as well. I've been on the Public Protection Committee for the last 2 years, the Emergency Government, or rather Emergency Management Communications Committee, and the LEPC Committee. I'm involved in numerous community activities. My wife and I have 2 adult sons and 3 grandsons in the immediate area. I would appreciate your vote.
Mr. Colby?
Hello, my name's Ken Colby. I'm on my first term here with the county. I'm on my second term with Hudson Township. My background a little bit is I'm a nationally registered EMT paramedic. I have been for about 20 years. Part of my time when I was doing that, I was also a medical examiner, deputy medical examiner, I should say, investigator for La Crosse County. I spent several years doing that, particularly in recent time with the drownings down there. I have had a lot of contacts and cooperative work with police, fire, and EMS, with both the working as an EMS person and also as the medical examiner. I started the first responder group out in Hudson Township when I moved up here 6 years ago, along with one other neighbor up there. And my background has been public service, and I'm retired from the federal government and the VA. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Gunderson. I represent District 31. I am currently student teaching here in Hudson, actually at St. Pat's. So I have an interest in our future, obviously. I also have been a very active member at River Falls in a group called Ethical Citizens for Social Justice. So I am very interested and invested in our constituents' security and welfare.
Your mic turn.
Those elected to the Public Protection Committee, you can see it on the board, are Ms. Spears, Cindy Leonard, Roger Larson, John Borup, and Laura Gunners. We'll now move directly to the Ag and Extension area for nomination. Mr. Wendt. Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Bill Peavy.
Cindy.
Linda Lucky.
Are there any other nominations? We need 5 nominations. Yeah, yes.
I would nominate Jane Roots.
Any other nominations?
I nominate Dave Peterson.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other, Dick?
I'll nominate Dan Rabel.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? If not, the nominations are closed, and we will vote for 5 people for Ag and Extension, and as soon as we're done voting, we're going to take a break.
Have them introduce themselves. Are you going to do an introduction?
Yes, I'd like to have those members, as they are on the board, stand up and just tell a short something about yourself.
Nature Center Preserve, thank you. Down where East Cove Road goes off of Highway F and separates the 2 prairies that you see there from each other. That was my parents' dairy farm. My mom and dad were very committed stewards of the land. Long before it was fashionable to do so, Dad engaged in organic farming. We religiously rotated crops and tried to steer away from commercial fertilizers, mindful of the phosphorus that they contained in our proximity to the St. Croix River. I remember my dad often speaking about one of the conservation officers in Baldwin by the name of Jim Derringer. My dad invited Jim to come out to our farm because our cattle, when they grazed, were creating an erosion problem on the banks that go down to the St. Croix River. And Dad was fearful that in times of heavy rain, what the cattle had started with their feet would ultimately erode more seriously, as it had done in a couple of places. And Jim encouraged Dad to buy a contour plow, which was just a disc, and Dad went along the entire bluff line and dug earth out and redeposited it like a sine curve, and left a trench there. And from that point on, when the rains would come, they would pond up in that retention area and not compromise the bank. I have the highest regard for Gaylord Nelson, who, as you probably already know, was the author of Earth Day. That's coming up this month. And he was such a strong advocate for preserving the St. Croix Riverway. I too am in that camp, so thank you.
Mr. Peavy.
Yeah, I'm Bill Peavy, represent District 5, live south of Woodville. Been on the Ag Extension Committee for 2 terms for 4 years. Been on the Oak Valley Town Board for 25 years, and am actively farming, and would like to continue to serve on the committee. Thank you.
Linda Lucky.
I'm Linda Lucky. I guess as far as general experience goes, I'm of all the current county board members, I've served the longest. Charlie would have tied me, but he sat out for one term. Ag and Extension provides oversight to the Land and Conservation Department, Land and Water Conservation, and I've dealt with land and water issues over the years as a member of the Planning and Zoning Committee and the Board of Adjustment, and also having served on the Bass Lake Rehabilitation District Board. Ag and Extension also oversees the Parks Department, and because of my service on the Planning and Zoning Committee, I dealt with the parks when it was under the oversight of Planning and Zoning. And as far as agriculture and horticulture are concerned, I'm an avid gardener, and I've had exposure to farming issues through my grandparents and also due to my husband's family's dairy farm. Extension is all about education, and I do have a bachelor's degree in education. So I feel I have the necessary experience to serve on this committee and would ask for your support. Thank you.
Mr. Ritz.
I'm Gene Ritz. It says there it was spelt wrong, and Buzz corrected it. I've been on the county board now. This is my third term. I've been on that committee. Actually, it's 3 committees in one. Been on that for 4 years. I was a DNR forester here in St. Croix County for almost 29 years. After that, I retired and became a consulting forester, had my own firm for another 22 years until this job took me away from that. But anyway, I've got a good background in the conservation work. I was also involved in the development of the first shoreland zoning laws. And of course, we're working with the Land and Water Conservation Department here in this committee. And like I said, I'd like to be back on that committee because basically there's only 2 of us remaining. So if we can both win, we'll have the nucleus. Thank you.
Dave Peterson.
I represent Kinney Connect. I have 30 acres on the Kinney River. I have a natural interest, I guess, in agriculture. I feel the extension service is a valuable asset to the county, and I would be honored to serve on that aspect. I also feel that we have a responsibility to protect our environment, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Dan Rabel.
Well, earlier I said I could get water of a rock, but I don't think that's that was more of a figure of speech for everybody, because I know a lot of the farmers would appreciate that talent and that skill if it was for real. I'm just looking to serve on a board. You know, my purpose to come on the county board was to serve, and so I wasn't expecting a nomination, but when it came forward, I was not going to decline it. I'm here to serve. So I live in Emerald Township, and I got ears out there for listening to what those farmers are doing out there and the need, and same thing with education. Very understanding the importance of that. So just ready to serve. So.
At the moment, we have a tie on the vote. But Mr. Cranmer hasn't voted, and we'd like to give him an opportunity to vote on this last issue. So, Bill, if you're up to it. Yeah,
I would prefer to know what the issue is. Just came in.
We're voting on
Ag and Extension
ag and extension, yeah.
Those 6 people, you get 5 votes. For 5.
You need to vote on for 5 people. Yeah, would the two new members stand up? That's Mr. Peterson and Rabel, yeah. The rest of them are presently members. Yeah, it's hard to come in alone like that. It's come in cold. But you should have the right to vote. Thank you. Buzz Marsoff, Bill Peavy, Linda Lucky, Gene Ritz and Dan Rabel will serve on the Ag and Extension Committee. Thank you very much, and we'll take a 10-minute break. Okay, if we could get the meeting started again. Who's going to handle the preview of the April 21st County Board setting meeting? Goal setting. Buck, do you have the background on that, or Chuck?
Well, I covered some of this earlier today. I don't know if there's any questions on it. Again, this is something that was started with the last admin committee, so it's a little bit different than what we've experienced in the past. There is in the packet a somewhere here in the back last year's results with some scoring that the facilitator did based on the conversations that she had with those of you who talked with her or responded to the questionnaire that she had put out. We'll get together at 8:30. The board will convene just like it does for a normal session, and then she'll be the facilitator for it, and then we'll see where everybody wants to go. She's made some suggestions that, we work with what we know. We now know who 4 of the committees are. We know who the chair is. So that might be a starting place. But it'll be wide open as far as you're concerned. If, in the absence of giving her a direction, she'll go in the direction that she thinks is needed at the time. So my guess is that she'll jump right into it and take you where you want to go. There will be some refreshments there so that you don't have to go through all of this without some nourishment. There will be a lunch during this. The facilities, if you haven't been there before, are very nice, very comfortable. She'll probably ask to have you break out into smaller groups from time to time, just to facilitate discussions. And my guess is that she may ask for some work from you. Being a goal setting, generally speaking, there aren't any motions or actions that get taken, no voting. What we've done in the past when we've had these is we'll summarize it, get it back to you in time for the May meeting we would hope, or the June meeting at least, where you can vote on it as the position of the county. So you've got some time to reflect on what's been done. And these things generally are working documents. They're certainly open to change as time goes on. And they probably will be based on whatever objectives are set and met by committees and the board in general during the year. Any questions that I can try to answer? Okay.
Everything will be a go for next Monday then? Yep. Okay. The next thing on the agenda is a discussion on administration committee recommendations regarding nursing home advisory election question. Referendum question. Who? Esther, are you the one that's handling that, or who's handling that?
Well, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't know I was handling it, but I'm on the administration committee, and there's just 2 of us left, Darrell and I, and I'd like to make a suggestion that different people have talked to me about is going back to the old way the administration was formed, one person from each of the elected committees be on there, and then ask for all the help we can get on making that election question right.
What direction have we been taking on our decision for those members that are going to be on that committee? Can anybody tell me?
Are you asking, Mr. Chairman, what factors were considered in creating the administration committee?
No.
Or the referendum question?
My question is, who were the ones that were planning to do the work on this question of the advisory or the referendum?
The way the board set it up last month, it was referred to the administration committee to report back with a recommendation for how to create that committee. The administration committee was down to 2 people, and the rest were not available for the meeting date. So it was chaired by Mr. King, and Mr. Standifer, who was the other member available, were there, and I filled in order to create a quorum. Under the bylaws, the chair does that. And the recommendation that the administration committee made to be presented to this county board was that it doesn't necessarily make a lot of difference who's on the committee that forms the question and brings it here, because it's going to come back to this county board where it can be modified, and chances are will be modified to suit the tastes of a majority of the county board. So at any rate, after discussing that, the decision of the administration committee on that day was to recommend that the new administration committee be the one in charge of bringing back a proposed wording for the referendum.
Yes, Esther.
I do know that Fred Johnson has contacted WCA in regards to referendums that may have been held other parts of the state and other counties, and he's waiting to hear that information back. I personally think this is not really an issue for the administration committee, old or new. I think it should be up to an ad hoc committee, which was, I think, in the resolution as it was brought forward, the motion asked that an ad hoc committee be appointed. And perhaps we should try to think of having one from each part of the county and then one at large to serve on that committee. And that the wording would then be approved by the county board as the final say.
We discussed this at length, as former Chair Malik indicated. The meeting was chaired by Secretary King. The other 2 members of the committee were absent that day. We looked historically at referendum questions that have come through the county and have gone, advisory referendums that have gone to a ballot question. They have historically been handled by the administration committee, and the outline of duties of that committee clearly seems to indicate that that would be appropriate. At this point, we have no idea who the 2 of you will appoint to that committee, so obviously we don't have any individuals in mind who would draft that. But since it clearly falls within the framework of the scope of duties of the administration committee, our motion, which was unanimously approved, is to recommend to the county board that whoever is the newly appointed administration committee draft language to be brought here for final approval, subject to county board approval, and the date that we specified to have that brought here for consideration was July, as I recall. Not later than July.
Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would it be possible for the clerk to research the minutes of our previous meetings, because I've been operating under the opinion that the board wanted to have an ad hoc committee to develop that resolution and not any standing committee that we have.
Yes.
It clearly states on page 6 of 9 of our minutes of their last meeting that the discussion was to appoint a 5-person ad hoc committee to draft exact words of the referendum, and the discussion regarding the ad hoc committee, which will be a working group to bring back a recommendation to the county board. Now, if the chair so sees fit, I personally see no problem with the administration committee doing this work. But according to the motion that was made and passed, we were to have an ad hoc committee appointed.
You see, Mr. Chairman, that's what bothers me. We as a Board of Supervisors sent a directive by a majority vote to the chair to appoint an ad hoc committee, and it was not done. So I think we have to reconsider that and do it.
Mr. Standifer?
I clearly think that what the action was to refer to the administration committee what that recommendation would be. And after due deliberation, including the possible appointment of a whole different set of supervisors, it was obvious that that de facto appointment would be done when whoever is the new chair and vice chair appoints the new administration committee. And that new group then would have included in their responsibilities the bringing back here of the draft language for review and final approval by the full county board. So the report that we're bringing back that Supervisor King just presented earlier was that after due deliberation, our recommendation was that the ad hoc committee to be appointed be whoever is the newly appointed administration committee.
I'd like to ask Corp Counsel for some kind of a ruling here. How did this get to the administration committee when the Board of Supervisors instructed the ad hoc committee be formed? To me, that's quite obvious that the committee should be formed and the administration committee would not have been involved, based upon our minutes. Opinion, please.
If the board, from the language that I heard Ms. Norton-Baumann state, that the chair is to appoint an ad hoc committee, and I assume then that it would be approved by the board, then this board is free to ask that action be taken. And while the administration committee can weigh in if it so desires, that weigh-in doesn't have to be considered by the board if the board believes that a different course of action should be taken.
Thank you.
As I listen to the discussion, I think that's something that Mr. King and I will take care of when we sit down to decide who the appointments are going to be, and we'll follow the dictates of the motion that was made. Any other concern or question on that area? Fred, did you have anything that you needed to add? Okay. Okay, if not, then we'll move on to number 3. Yes.
I'm sorry. May I still speak with respect to the previous discussion?
Sure.
For those of you that have not been here in past meetings when I have spoken on this issue, I would simply ask that you, in good faith, consider several items. At the January 1st, at the January meeting of the 2001 County Board, it was unanimously approved to build a new nursing home. That resolution was never acted upon. We are here 7 years after the fact, after having spent a ton of money on interim nursing home supervisors, interim directors of nursing that are contracted. We have all this grumbling over benefits that the workers at the home receive. I've been to that home and I've seen the care that those people receive, and believe me, it's well worth it to me as an individual, and it should be to all of us as members of this county. When we were told last summer that the operating deficit,
Mr. Barzal,
yes,
that is not on the agenda, so we're gonna take that at another time, okay?
thank you. I apologize if I'm out of order.
We're gonna go to number 3. The approval of the Government Center Health and Human Services Nursing Home security measures and expenses. And who is handling that?
I'll handle it in the absence of a committee chair.
Okay.
In your packet is a memo that is written to you from our risk manager, Kristen Ziliak. It's basically the same memo that had gone to the Finance Committee at its meeting on April 8th. The committee at that time reviewed the lockdown situation that took place, and this memo that proposed some considerations for additional security in this building and up in New Richmond. The Finance Committee approved $2,500 on the back side of the memo, you'll see it, for a card swipe. That is the use of your card as a key by the employees. That would take place. That would be placed up at the nursing home. The committee approved that. The other items on the first page, including security cameras, a desktop notification software, and additional door card swipes, are what is before the board here today. The Finance Committee recommended approval of spending the $57,639 for those 3 items, pending county board approval of this. This is not a budgeted item for 2008. So if this was to be approved, the Finance Committee would, in all likelihood, consider the contingency fund for these costs and would proceed. There are 3 members of the Finance Committee that are here today, but I believe only 2 were at the meeting last week. That's my understanding of what the Finance Committee did and is proposing.
Would you repeat what the dollar amount was that you were talking about there?
On the front page where it says immediate needs, there's 3 items. They total $57,639. There's $10,039 for security cameras, additional security cameras. There's $19,000, which I believe is an estimated cost, for a desktop software that can be used during an emergency, and another $28,600 for additional key card swipes that would be placed around the building to increase security in getting in certain areas.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's important for all members to understand some of the big picture about security here and at our New Richmond facility. And I would recommend that Kristen Ziliak explain what's in this memo before we start making motions, so that everybody gets the big picture here. This, for one thing, is not the end of expenses to provide security. The 2 security committees in this building and at New Richmond are still studying a number of topics, and those are things that county board members are going to need to understand. Now, members who were reelected from the last term have heard something about this, but the other dozen or so people would find this all brand new news, and I suggest that Kristen ought to explain, similar to what she did with the Finance Committee.
Is Kristen running after some material or what? Back in here, okay.
I do want to note, if I can, Mr. Chair, that I left off one item. She'll cover it. It's on the back side of the memo, item number 2, another $28,000 for security cameras at the facility in New Richmond.
Information.
Most of you have, I would assume, the memo in front of you dated April 15th. I don't want to, I'll just start going through it. Hopefully, I'm not going into too much detail, but I'm Kristen Ziliak. I'm the risk manager for the county, for those of you that I haven't met yet. I am the chair of 2 of the safety committees that meet in the county. There's a safety committee that meets in Hudson that covers the government center and also the ag building in Baldwin. And there's also a safety committee in New Richmond that deals with issues for the buildings in New Richmond. There's also a safety committee for the highway department, but that is an employee-run committee, and I'm not the chair of that committee. The New Richmond and Hudson safety committees have been addressing security issues in all of the buildings for quite some time. But on 2/15, we had a false alarm lockdown situation in the government center that we went through in some detail at the last meeting. And as a result of some of the issues that arose from that situation, we've been pushing some of these security issues to the forefront to be addressed quicker rather than later. So on the memo that you have in front of you, what we've identified as immediate needs are needs that the committee feels need to be addressed yet in 2008. They were not budgeted for, so the alternative is to, put them into capital outlay for 2009, but we feel they need to be addressed right now. Item number 1 is an expansion of, or an addition to, the number of security cameras that are currently in this building. At the Finance Committee meeting, we asked for the $10,000 to add 4 additional cameras to the current system. Those cameras would be placed on the second floor. Currently, there are no cameras on the second floor, and we would place the other 2 cameras on the first floor. At the Finance Committee meeting, we were directed to look at not only adding those 4 cameras, but adding an additional camera downstairs outside of the entrance to maintenance, and also figuring out what the cost would be to expand that system even further than that. So just this morning, Casey Swetlick got an estimate back from his vendor, and in order for us to go to 5 cameras instead of 4, which adds the ability to secure that maintenance entrance, the total is now $11,829. And there was a handout in the back that spoke to what additional capabilities that would give us. But Casey, could you come up maybe and go through that in a little bit more detail? It's just not the 5 cameras. It gives us the ability to expand that system further in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Casey Swellick. I'm the director of the 911 Center. The current security camera system was purchased through a grant through the Enhanced 911 project. So our system was already in place through that grant. It's about 1.5 years old. It currently monitors and records 4 cameras in the government center, specifically related to the entrance and exit of the 911 center. That's how it qualified for this grant. We can build out of our current system. We currently have 4 cameras we can add to that system without a major modification. Those were the initial 4 cameras that we proposed to finance. Upon discussion of that project, Finance recommended that we explore adding 8 more licenses and expanding our current recording system to allow for a total of 16 cameras for future possible expansion. So I provided you with a separate page showing this security camera expansion sheet, which covers the 5 cameras that would be purchased, as well as this expansion of our recording system to allow us for a possible 7 more cameras at future points to add to our security monitoring system.
So that $11,000 quote not only gives us our current monitoring of 9 cameras then, but also allows us to expand for 7 more cameras in the future.
Any additional questions about the cameras?
Mr. Rabel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question I just have, and being new, I just want to kind of bring myself to this real quick. Are we obligated to stay with the original contractor that set the system up under the grant?
No.
You come back with just one price? Is there comparison prices?
The fact that we had a project through competitive bidding a year and a half ago, this vendor then was selected through the competitive bidding process a year and a half ago. I took the step in contacting them directly to expand and get price quotes for your consideration. It certainly doesn't mean that we can't go up for competitive bidding again. We just have to find a vendor that's able to find a system that can merge with our current one. But there was a competitive bidding process about a year and a half ago when we were allocated the money through the grant.
I was wondering if a motion is made, approximately how much money should be the ceiling for the expenditure. Should we talk 15,000? Well, we'd have to talk, use also the 2,500 that's on the back of the page. You want a ballpark of a particular figure?
What, are you specifically asking about the security camera figure?
Well, no, I'm asking about the whole amount for the authorization and purchase for various things that are listed on the first page and the second page. Oh, I see. But you're talking also about the desktop applications on for personal.
Right.
Withdraw my question. But it's still a valid point, though. How much you have a specific figure here that's based upon the $10,000 estimate, and now we're talking about slightly more. How much, in terms of an authorization ceiling amount, would be appropriate?
What we're asking for in the government center is the total there that you see, $57,639. But we would like to revise that in light of the new estimate that we have for the security cameras. I mean, we could just round it. The estimate comes in about $2,000 higher, so we can round it to $60,000 if you want to, go that way. But that's approximately what we're asking for the government center alone. And then we'll talk about New Richmond here in a minute.
Steve, you had a question first.
Yes, I did. So what we see on the security camera expansion for $11,829, my first question is that just for the government center here? And
yes,
the second part of the question is then I see that you've got, that you're asking for an expansion of an additional capability for an additional 7 cameras. Does the government center need an additional 7 cameras down the road? Do you foresee that? And what is the cost if that wasn't put in?
That's a very good question. I apologize for not covering that initially in my explanation. The licenses come in packets of 8. So we initially have, and the county currently owns, licensure for 8 cameras to be recorded and monitored. Getting that 5th camera, which is what finance asked us to look at, now puts us at 9 cameras. So it requires us to buy another bundle of 8 for licensure purposes. That's part of this quote. It's not an extra cost in a sense of we're not paying extra for those 7 licenses that we aren't using. It's required in that they come in bundles of 8. So now we're positioned to have 16 cameras. However, we're only going to be utilizing 9 if this passes.
And what is the price for that additional 8 licenses?
The breakdown for the additional 8 was just under $900.
Mr. Malley.
I'm wondering if Casey could tell us how the monitoring in the 911 center is relayed to the sheriff's people when we have an armed incident in this building or another type of threat of that sort. And I guess wondering about the question, could monitors be installed in the sheriff's department as well?
One of the benefits of this system and what was part of the original RFP for this system is not only the fact that we can monitor and we have recorded all camera activity in the 911 center, they're displayed on monitors for the 911 dispatchers to see. They're able to switch camera pictures to look at one specific camera with a full wide view. But this system is also web-based in that if given the URL to look at this camera system, anyone can do so if they have a computer. So the possibility of a security or sheriff's department observation of our cameras is already existing in that all they have to do is get the URL from IT and get authorization rights to actually look at our current camera systems and what we're looking at in the 911 center. Communication about activity and updates is done through either phones or more than likely radio transmissions from the sheriff's department or any law enforcement personnel that's actually investigating a call.
Charlie? Are these on film when you have film for everything that goes on?
Currently, they're being recorded on a computer disk, and they're preserved for right now 30 days unless they're saved. The 30-day retention period is due to the amount of activity that we're recording. It's a use recording system in that if there's activity, it records it. In the evening when nothing is going on in the government center, nothing's being recorded. So it records on movement. And right now our capability is a 30-day period. Should we add 4 or 5 more cameras, that time frame is going to narrow down unless we expand our system. But my recommendation would be there's no need for an expansion of our recording ability. 2 to 3 weeks recording time, in my opinion, is sufficient enough for us to be alert to a situation and then preserve it indefinitely.
Mr. Mortensen.
In this year, we're going to have a 4th judge, and is that consideration taken in this security system, that area?
The proposal in front of you is to record main hallway activity on the first floor. We currently record the entrance of the first floor, and then also the expansion in front of you proposal is to record main hallway activity on the second floor, where currently, as Kristen mentioned, we don't have any cameras up there at all. So hallway activity, yes, this would cover that. There is possible expansion opportunities with our 7 licenses where we can then investigate perhaps side halls, other areas, other rooms, but that's for the future discussion. Right now we're talking main hallways for recording.
Mr. Denley.
Have you looked into other possible grants for new systems or adding on to the system?
Our grant source is our emergency management individual, and we did speak with him to see if there were any federal or state grants that were available that he was aware of, and unfortunately there are not.
Al?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we give the committee permission to, it's $60,000, as I gather, or the $57,000. We give them permission to move ahead and purchase all the equipment that they need to furnish cameras for the main entrance, first floor and second floor.
Is there a second to that motion? John, more discussion?
Question as to how it's going to be funded. Is this if it passes, coming from the contingency fund? Are there going to be departments that have existing funding? Because this is, am I understanding it correctly, this is not a budgeted item?
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for corporate counsel. On bids like this, is it required at certain values that it has to be open to bid?
No, when you're buying equipment or services, you are not required to follow the public bidding requirements. Those apply generally to construction projects only.
Steve?
Thank you. My question is, can the itemized expenses be parsed out to lessen the burden on the budgeted items? My question, I guess, coming down to, for instance, I understand that the need for the cameras due to the incident that happened with the lockdown, but I'm questioning why we couldn't maybe also peel out the door swipes for a later time. If we're going to vote on this, do we have to take it as a whole, or can we take it as a line item?
Thank you. Going a bit further with that, on the back of this sheet, there's a recommendation for an immediate need for New Richmond. And I'm wondering if whatever we move to approve, that we might be better off if we wrap it all into one package rather than have two motions on the floor, one for Hudson and one for the Government Center here and one for New Richmond. And so I have a question about the requirements that the committee is telling us New Richmond needs.
Well, I still have a question. I thought I observed some resistance to spending this money from finance. What was the final evaluation of that coming from finance?
I think I could safely say that we felt it was a decision that should be made by the full county board after the county board is brought up to speed on the issues and what's being studied. And I guess I'd like to know, I understand that the committee is also talking about having a single entry point to this building with radar detection and staffing. And they have talked about that. If we were to go to such staffing, and of course it would be expensive, but then I'm wondering, would we still need the cameras, or would we look back and say that that was unwise to spend the $60,000 for all these things, the door swipes and the notification software and the security cameras, if we choose instead to staff up and use detection at the entrance to this building and of course require the public to come in through that route. I only had a brief hallway conversation with Kristen about that, but she led me to believe that we aren't finished. This is just a starting point of improving our security.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following up on Supervisor Bork's question, how do we plan to finance this? What are our options?
Currently, no department has it in their budget, so we're coming to the board to ask for it to come either, that's what we were, I mean, it's up to you, whether it would come out of contingency, or I did propose to the Finance Committee that we could take it out of the liability fund, which is one of the risk management funds, and then I have a mechanism for basically spreading those costs back to departments at a later date. We do it 2 years after the expenses are made. So that's an alternative as well.
Sharon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I personally would like an explanation before I could vote on any of this on the immediate needs for the Government Center, items number 2 and 3. Why does the Safety Committee feel that those are important and necessary? Please.
Regarding number two is a desktop notification software system. We have provided the Finance Committee with a demonstration of how this system would work. One of the things that came out of not just the lockdown, but we recognized it as not a flaw, but a deficiency in our system was the only way we have to notify the entire building that something is happening is a PA system. There are only so many speakers. Every office doesn't have a speaker. The speakers are frequent. When an announcement is made, many employees can't hear them, either because they're not close enough, there are no speakers in the restrooms, back in the lunchroom. So we felt like it's a risk to be overly reliant on that one form of notification to people in the building of what's going on. And so the desktop notification software would be networked. So we purchased that system for the $19,000. And any computer that's county-owned that's part of the network, not just in this building, would be able to participate with desktop panic buttons. Every computer would have basically a red button on its keyboard that would be labeled panic, and when they pressed it, emergency communications would get a notification of which office had pressed it. It also has the ability for emergency communications, or however we set it up, to send alerts to every desktop, whether that would be of severe weather or whatever else we wanted to send them. So it's another way to communicate with people in the building that something is going on or they need to protect themselves, other than just the overhead PA. Any questions about that before I go to number 3?
This keyboard, you're saying, how tough would that be to accidentally bump or have false alarms?
There is a risk of false alarms. It's not a replacement of keyboards. It's just a red button that goes over the top of a button you already have, and we would have to consider where to place it. But there is a risk for that accidental alert. But it would go down to emergency communications, and then they could clarify what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In that this is at least my first exposure to this, and we have a lot of new board members, and it's really a complicated deal. I'm wondering, Corp Counsel, can I table their motion and second for a later meeting where we'd have more information and still keep the issue alive, but not have to decide today?
You can move to postpone the motion to a time certain, or you can move to postpone the motion indefinitely.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. I move that we postpone this until our, let's see, this is May, till 1 July.
Could we reconsider that, because we don't have this county board meeting scheduled in July, and that just is pushing it back further.
We have to have a second on that motion first. No? Okay, we don't need a second on that motion.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, yes, you do. I just didn't want my hand to be interpreted as second to offer. If you don't get a second to that one, in a shorter time.
Is there a second to that motion that's on the floor? Okay, we won't.
Move that we postpone this only till our next county board meeting, the May meeting, not the closed session.
Okay, the motion is changed to postponing it only till the next meeting, which would be the May meeting. There's a second out there from Mr. Colby. Yes, Sharon?
I'm sorry, but I'm still waiting for information on item number 3, the door swipes, because I don't know if this will come up again before our May meeting, and I really want to know what it is we're voting for, or not for, whatever the case may be.
We're going to move on the motion that's out here from Mr. Peter, or from Mr. Malik's motion to withhold this, or table this motion until the May meeting. Is there, all those in favor say aye?
I would like to make a statement here, please.
Yes.
I was the secondary. I know some of the stuff is very extreme in, as far as the type of equipment. Security is becoming a very, very major issue. So if you do have a chance on your own too to take a look into what security is throughout the whole country, not just for us, but what the whole country is looking at, because this is what we're going to need in the very near future. And delaying it 1 month, yes, I would accept the idea of delaying a month. I would really like to be able that we could do it, voting on it right away, but understanding that how difficult some of these pieces of equipment are, and to understand it for the rest of the board, I would be willing to say, yes, we can do a month, but I really would like to impress on people that it's something we really need to look very hard at, and yes, we do need to approve it. Thank you.
Mr. Malley.
Postponing to a date certain, so you're not out of order letting us talk, Mr. Chairman. There's also a demonstration, well, there are lots of demonstrations of lots of products for this desktop notification software, but I think some people were very impressed when they saw a demonstration of the Lynx product, and that, I would suggest, ought to be shown to the county board next meeting, next month, you know, so that everybody can see how that would work. It would probably help to answer some questions about the red button and the risk of inadvertent false alarms and things like that, as well as the really positive side of this software.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. I know you brought this to a vote, but then we were stopped. But after motions are on the floor and seconded, is there a time for discussion on that motion? Is that correct? Okay. And the question I have is, by postponing this, are we just going to end up picking up right where we are today with this? What is the objective to postpone it? In that motion, it just says, let's talk again next month. Shouldn't we have something designed in that motion to say what we want back to hear? Or if we're going to not have that in motion, let's discuss it and get it over with today.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. My reason for asking for the postponement was to be able to provide the board with the data which we haven't seen, and to figure out, let them recommend to us how we're going to finance the purchase.
Well, I think it was a good suggestion from Mr. Malik to show this equipment at the next meeting. We've not had an opportunity to observe it, and some of those questions would then be answered, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kristen was at the Finance or Administration Committee to which you made your present. I was at that Finance Committee meeting, and I was very impressed by the online presentation that Kristen made to us, in which she had a hookup, an audio hookup with the vendor who offers this. And it was my suggestion to the Finance Committee that we bring that to the board at the March meeting, but that was overruled. And here we are a month later. I'm not trying to be critical, but I think it's time to get off the dime on some of these issues. We've hired qualified people to look into things such as this. I think it's time to trust their judgment. They are the experts. Thank you.
Mr. Hermsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only question I've got out of this, and the reason why I asked about parsing this out, my understanding was the whole reason that this all came about was due to the incident. And I'm questioning whether, to me it appears it's a piling on when of nice to haves, when I look at it, this is as we said, an emergency, an immediate need. And I would just ask that some of this be peeled out and budgeted, rather than, we all agree that the security of the building is paramount, but I think it doesn't need to come at us in this manner. Cameras, yes, but all of a sudden adding extra door swipes at $28,000, that to me seems like a convenience that could wait type of stuff. Thanks.
There is a motion on the floor and a second to hold this up to the May meeting and further study it. I think it's time to call the motion, unless there's a lot of discussion yet. And because it is a budgeted item, we would have a roll call vote. To postpone it, yeah.
You're first on my list. And you want to clarify the motion to postpone it, yes vote is to.
Yeah. Oh, you want me?
Go ahead, clarify, yes vote is to postpone.
Okay, a yes vote is to hold this up until the May meeting. A no vote is to not hold it up and do it today.
Roger Repholz?
To vote on a motion, yes.
Roger Repholz?
Yes.
Bill Cranmer?
Bill?
Daryl Standifer?
Yes.
John Borup?
Yes.
Clarence Malik?
Yes.
Steve Hermson?
Yes.
Ken Colby?
No.
Cindy Leonard?
Yes.
Linda Lucky?
Yes.
Shane Demmeling?
No.
Laura Gunderson? Dan Rabel?
No.
Alfred Schrank?
No.
Julie Spear?
No.
Joe Hurchin?
No.
Bill Peavy?
No.
Gerald Peterson?
Yes.
Charlie Grant?
Yes.
Roger Larson?
No.
Richard King?
No.
Frederick Horn?
No.
John Mortensen?
No.
Esther Wentz?
No.
Gene Ritz?
No.
David Peterson?
Yes.
David Osnes?
No.
Lauren Sather?
No.
Richard Marzoff?
No.
Sharon Norton Bauman?
No.
The vote is 19 no and 10 yes, so
We never got through the total explanation of the items 1 through 3, so could you speak to the door swipe issue? What doors and, what are we doing there?
We currently have a system where we've installed the boxes on different doors that employees have to use their ID badges to get through. Before we had that system, there was entrance to the building from multiple points, including the 2 front doors on the side, not just the front door, but the 2 side doors. Those 2 side doors now have card swipes on them so that only employees with cards can enter through those points. We have other doors in the building that have card swipes, but we've identified a need to install more. For example, the door to the mailroom does not have a card swipe on it. It says employees only. We've gone to closing that door, but pretty much anybody can just walk right into the mailroom, take whatever they want. So that's one door that we've identified. Let me go back a minute. The current system comes with, and Art may need to come up and explain this a little bit more, but panels. For each panel that's purchased, you get 4 doors. All of our panels are currently full. So in order for us to add more door swipes, we have to buy with one vendor. I've asked Dana Baker from procurement to start checking into whether there are other vendors who supply this type of software. So far, she's checked with the state of Wisconsin and the state of Minnesota and has not been able to identify any other vendors who offer this same system. We're still working on that, but it's looking like they're a sole proprietor right now. Regarding the door card swipes, Art, you may have to speak to whether or not we're tied to a certain vendor for that. Yeah.
come up to a microphone.
currently on the vendors that we're using on the card swipe, we are using a sole proprietor on that. The year and a half, I think, that Casey had talked about earlier, that vendor has been designing and supplying the county everything. We could go to that bidding process and see where it's at, but we figured in the pricing of this that seeing that it was only a year and a half in time, since the vendor was chosen, they are up and running. It was a matter of not only dollars but also time, and being prudent in that.
Linda?
On this door swipe issues, you're going to be locking these doors. Now, what about the county board? You said the mailroom. Now, we need to have access to our mailboxes, and if we wanted to go talk to Cindy, for example, how is this going to work?
The easiest thing to do that is with to use your card access. You swipe your card on that, light goes from red to green, you open your door, you go in, you grab your mail or whatever other area that you're going to be in. The beauty of this, or the nicety of this program, is it adds security, especially up for the court systems upstairs. Staff can determine, or admin can determine who needs to get into what area. Because you have access, for example, into the mailroom, does not give you access to go back into the courts area. So you can break that out, and also the nice thing about it is for employees. If we have an employee that leaves, okay, sometimes getting a key back is a difficult thing. With a card access, you go to your computer screen, you hit the button, that card is no longer active. So the beauty of it is in the card. You can determine what access, what level. If that access increases, and it also, by computer generation, generates those access points and everything there.
Well, the badges we already have, the new people got today, are those already set up to work, or will we be getting something new?
Thank you. They can be. Yeah.
Roger?
Does that also have the capability of tracking people in and out of doors?
Most definitely. This system tracks 100%. Anytime that you go use this at a door, it tells what time that you've entered. It, of course, will not determine who's leaving, but who went into that office.
John?
On the one side of the request or page, we're talking 60,000, and on the other side, another 30,000. So we need to keep that in mind when we're voting and discussing.
The motion, I believe, that was on the floor was for the 60,000.
Just to clarify, was the motion for 60,000?
You're asking what items make up that total?
No, I'm asking was the motion for 57 or 60?
Elfie made the motion, and he said he didn't give the exact amount. It was around that 60,000 mark.
You can read the motion.
Go ahead and read it back.
It was a motion by Supervisor Schrank, second by Supervisor Cranmer, to give permission of $60,000 to move ahead to purchase the equipment needed for the cameras in the main entrance and first floor, for the first floor and second floor, is what he said.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll call for a roll call vote because we're spending money.
Where's the money coming from?
And where's the money coming from? We're going to go ahead and vote now. Okay? Cindy, you want to take a vote? Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, Cindy made reference to the 3 cameras. I didn't hear reference made to the Lynx desktop or the door card swipes. Are we voting on the $60,000 in total package?
Yeah, those three sections make up the.
Thank you.
Bill Cranmer?
Yes.
Daryl Standifer? Oh. John Borup?
Yes.
Clarence Malick? Steve Hermson? Ken Colby?
Yes.
Cindy Leonard? Linda Lucky? Shane Demmeling?
Yes.
Laura Gunderson? Dan Rabel?
No.
Alfred Schrank?
Yes.
Julie Spear? Joe Hurchin? Bill Peavy?
Yes.
Gerald Peterson?
No.
Charlie Grant?
No.
Roger Larson? Richard King?
Yes.
Frederick Horn?
Yes.
John Mortensen?
Yes.
Esther Wentz? Jean Ritz?
Yes.
David Peterson?
Yes.
David Osnes?
Yes.
Lauren Sather? Richard Marzoff?
Yes.
Sharon Norton Bauman? Roger Repholz?
No.
The vote was 22 yes and 6 no. Okay. Then we'll move on to the next thing, unless there's any other questions. I think we're done with that. Well, you want to add that to it? Let's go on discussing it then. Yep. Okay. You move into the New-Richmond discussion then, if you will.
Okay, the New Richmond Safety and Security Committee has been evaluating issues up in New Richmond. The Finance Committee already approved at its last meeting on the 8th the $2,500 for one. There was one remaining external door on the nursing home that did not have a card swipe on it yet. The employees of the nursing home are using keys to get into that building, so we have lots of keys out to lots of different people and aren't always getting them back. So the proposal was to put a card swipe on that door for the $2,500. The Finance Committee did approve that on April 8th. The other item that we're asking for is the migration to a single public entrance for the Health and Human Services building. For those of you that are familiar with that building, currently I believe there's as many as 6 entrances that the public can use to come into that building. They're down the side, they're around the back. What we're proposing is that we go to a single entrance for the public. They will all have to come in the front door now. And those other external doors already have card swipes on them. So all we have to do, they're programmed currently to be open during regular business hours. We'll just change the programming so they're no longer open to the public during regular business hours, and employees with cards can still get in, but the public won't be able to get in and basically wander all over the building. We'll have no idea who's in the building. What this does is force everybody to go through the front. It will force them to check in at the front desk, but only if we go to the next step of closing off the main hallway. Currently, there's a set of doors that shut at 5 that close off that hallway, but they're open during regular business hours to allow the public to come and go. What we're proposing is that those doors be closed and that the front desk receptionist would have the ability to buzz people through that door as they come to her and identify their need to be in the building. That requires us to install a buzzer on that door. This proposal also includes 4 security cameras at that main entrance. One of the concerns with the entrance to Health and Human Services is that if you go to the right, you can just walk right into the nursing home. And those doors to the nursing home hallway have to remain open because they're fire doors. So by fire code, we cannot close those doors. So they're open all the time. We're proposing the security cameras so that the people in the nursing home can monitor who's coming in and out after hours, and they can see who's up there. The other component of the $28,000 is an opener for those two doors that we're proposing to start closing, so that, according to ADA standards, so that that door can be opened automatically.
I move approval of the $28,000 proposed expenditure for migration to single public entrance for HHS.
Yes, I was interested, what would be the procedure during regular visiting hours? As I understand your proposal, anybody coming to the front door, the single entrance of the combination nursing home HHS office complex would be buzzed through, is that correct?
The front doors would remain open during regular business hours, but I believe they're programmed to lock. Come on up, Art.
Currently, the way that the building facility works up in New Richmond campus for Health and Human Services and the nursing home is the foyer doors, okay, would be open during business hours. As you enter that main foyer, the doors to the west, or the ones leading into the nursing home, would be closed during business hours. At that point, they would be buzzed in, the door would open up, they would go in for their business, or they would be met by the people that they're doing business with up at Health and Human Services. After hours, the way things would work would be that there would be two internal doors then that would be closed, and that door that was opened, or closed, excuse me, the door that was closed to the west, that main door going into Health and Human Services, would then be open so that visitors, clients, people doing business up at the New Richmond campus would be able to use the bathroom facilities that are farther down and around that corner. So that's the way it would be, is normal business days, the main entrance would remain open, you would walk through, you would go into Health and Human Services, you would have to be buzzed through, trying to secure that area, and then after hours for meetings and the like of those things that are going on, those doors then would remain open, and the doors farther down, people would have to come and get them at that point, but it would give them bathroom facilities so they don't have to migrate down into the nursing home area to use the facilities.
Art, can you also go through how they get into the nursing home after hours?
Okay. Currently, right now, the way that entrance is at the nursing home is the doors are shut. There isn't a receptionist up in the main foyer, the main entrance in that area. So what happens is during business hours, again, you come into that same business, or enter into that south entrance, the main entrance. You enter into the facility, you go down through a course of hallways and go into the nursing home. After hours, what happens is there's a courtyard, a small courtyard with a, for less of a term, a narrow sidewalk that runs down there. And when the doors are closed after normal business hours, people that are visiting the nursing home, they have family, relatives, they're going to be visiting, an emergency situation goes on, they have to then proceed down that narrow hallway, or that narrow sidewalk, down into a courtyard. They have to buzz. Somebody from the nursing station has to then come and on first floor, it has to come and give them access in there, and it's through a stairwell. It's not user-friendly after hours, to be very honest. The process of putting these cameras out is so that people can come to that main foyer entrance again. They can ring a buzzer, they're picked up on a camera, they can identify who it is. At that nursing station, they can identify, they can see who it is, again, that's at that door, make note of it. They can buzz them in, and the camera then will bring them in. They'll be able to monitor coming down through that hallway, and it's more of a safety issue for the nursing home.
Thank you. I just want a clarification, please. I heard the motion to be made to spend the $28,000 for item number 2 at the New Richmond campus. Am I to assume that item number 1, which is approved by the Finance Committee for $2,500, is not something that we need to approve?
Ken, questions?
Yes, on this system, is it also a recording system, or is it a live only?
It's live only, correct, Art?
Can I just add one more question? What would be the cost of adding a record capabilities to it? I can't quite understand on having a camera, but you don't have the ability to look back and say, there was something actually going on up there?
We don't have that cost at this time.
My question is, the process that for people visiting the nursing home right now has been in place for probably quite a number of years, right? And I guess I'd like to know, not that I'm against security, what I'm concerned with is why this needs to be right now when it couldn't, why it can't be a budgeted item for next year's budget. That's the part I'm troubled with in all of this, is that this should normally go through process as far as a budget.
We've identified it as a need that needs to be addressed immediately because Health and Human Services is interested in moving quickly, responding to the concerns that employees have. We haven't had any major incidents, if that's part of what you're asking. We also have a new nursing home administrator up there who is very concerned about the types of traffic that they're getting down that hallway after hours. So we have a turnover in staff, plus we just have a larger focus on this issue, and we feel like it needs to be addressed as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I have is that, we could take the money from another fund and put it into the 60,000. We have that same capability for the 28,000? Or is it?
Yeah, you're referring to what I proposed to the Finance Committee, that it come out of the liability fund? Yeah, we would have that same capability.
Buzz?
Thank you. I just had a what-if question, Kristen. I noticed within the last 2 years at our Metropolitan Airport that when pilots and flight attendants swipe their card on the access door that takes them to the tarmac, the hydraulic or pneumatic closer on the door closes the door slowly enough so that someone coming behind them can go through without swiping their card. And on the flip side of that, when pilots and flight attendants exit through those doors into the lobby, the same situation holds up. Their back is to someone that might be standing there. Does this door swipe provision that we have in any way protect against that? Is there a film that accompanies the door swipe? Or is this something we should worry about?
Are you specifically asking about the set of doors in New Richmond, or all of the doors that we have card swipes on?
Any doors that we're talking about in this discussion?
Yeah, it's a concern. I mean, one of the things that we tell employees is to kind of look and make sure other people aren't basically following you in, and also to make sure that the door closes. But we have to meet ADA requirements on some of the external doors. We're actually waiting to hear back from the state of Wisconsin regarding that internal door. And I know we're talking about a lot of different doors, But the door that I'm talking about now is the one that's on the other side of the front reception desk in Health and Human Services. We're waiting to hear back from them as to whether or not we actually have to have the ADA component on that door. It's an internal door because we're worried about people that will just follow through. So it is a concern. ADA.
We have,
yeah. Americans with Disabilities Act.
we have a motion on the floor and a second. Are we ready for a vote? Okay, could we get a repeat on that motion?
There's a motion by Supervisor Malik, second by Supervisor Mortensen to approval of $28,000 for a single public entrance expenditure, and that's at the Richmond facility.
The Richmond facility. Yeah. And we'll do that by roll call vote. Okay?
First one, John Borup. Yes. Clarence Malik. Yes. Steve Hermson. No. Ken Colby. Yes. Cindy Leonard. Yes. Linda Lucky. Yes. Shane Damuling. Yes. Laura Gunderson. Yes. Dan Rabel. No. Alfred Schrank. Yes. Julie Spear. Yes. Joe Hurchin.
Yes.
Bill Peavy.
Yes.
Gerald Peterson.
Yes.
Charlie Grant.
No.
Roger Larson.
Yes.
Richard King.
Yes.
Frederick Horn.
Yes.
John Mortensen.
Yes.
Esther Wentz.
Yes.
Jean Ritz.
Yes.
David Peterson.
Yes.
David Asmus.
Yes.
Lauren Sather.
Yes.
Richard Marzoff.
Yes.
Sharon Norton Bauman.
Yes.
Roger Rebholz.
No.
Bill Cranmer.
Yes.
And Daryl Stanford is gone. So 28.
We'll move on to the resolution then requesting the state of Wisconsin to increase reimbursement payments made by the Department of Corrections for state probation and parole prisoners held in county jail. And that's coming forth from the Public Protection Committee?
You have a copy of the resolution in front of you, and it's very, it's very easy to follow in that we're asking for money from the state. They have been taking from these funds. We're asking them to add back into the funds because it costs us, the county, $59 per day per person to house them in the jail. We're down as low as $40 per day and has not been increased since 1993. This is being supported by several other counties in Wisconsin, and St. Croix adds their name to the list. This was approved by the Public Protection Committee, and we'd like your approval for it here.
Approve this resolution. Any other discussion?
Supervisor Spear, if you have the information in front of you, could you tell us, please, how your committee voted
Oh, yes.
on this?
Let's see. Julie Spear, John Borup, Denise Gunderson, John Mortensen, all voted for. Chuck Mills was absent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, if you're ready for a vote, all those in favor indicate by raising your hands. Against? Against? It's overwhelming majority. Okay. Now we're ready for any committee reports that we need to do here. The first one is we have the register of deeds. Is that the first one? Yes.
Well, I was all set to say good morning, but I'll say good afternoon. I read, well, my name is Kay Walsh for the new ones here, and I'm the Register of Deeds for the county. I read somewhere that a surefire formula for making a speech is to have a good beginning and a good ending and keep them as close together as possible. So that's my goal. You should have received the written report in your packet, right? You all got that. I did discover yesterday when I was going over it that I made an error. And so on your tables, I put this buff-colored sheet. I got off on a line when I was entering the figures. So I redid it yesterday. And so for the general fund figures for 1999 through 2004 are different than the page that's in your original report. So anyway, the report is longer than usual. I know that. But I just felt that I wanted to give you an overview for the past 14 years of what has transpired in the Register of Deeds office, as this is my last report to you. We've experienced growth since 1994 and increased revenues. And if you look at the overall picture, it tells you the story of what's been going on. There was the huge surge of business that we had during the refinance period in 2001 and 2002 and 2003. And so that's what generated more of the revenue. Now we are returning to the time before that surge when you look at those figures. So, you know, reports still indicate that we are the fastest growing county. So we should see an increase in revenues over the next few years again. As I mentioned in the written report, we've made several advances in technology within the department. We went from fountain pen to ballpoint pen, typewriters to computers, microfilming to optical imaging, and to electronic recording of documents. So it's difficult to imagine what more can lie ahead of us, but I'm sure there will be some more advances. And it's essential that we keep abreast of these advancements and how they are going to affect our preservation of the records that date back to 1848. There's still projects that remain to be done. Some of our older books have been microfilmed, but not all of them. And as technology changes, we need to access and evaluate the need to convert these records to the newest archival medium that might be available. So it's the ongoing responsibility of the Register of Deeds office to protect and preserve the real estate and vital records of our county. Some of you new supervisors had an opportunity to visit the Register of Deeds office last week. I extend an invitation to all of you to stop by anytime, and our excellent Register of Deeds team will give you a tour, show you what we're doing there. And we do have an excellent team there. They are very diligent, dedicated, and they provide courteous service to our customers, and they are fulfilling the county motto, service is our purpose. As you know, the 4-year term office takes effect January 1st of 2009 for the county clerk, the county treasurer, and the Register of Deeds. So after making my decision to retire at the end of this term, my husband said, "Are you sure? You know, that you and the Wisconsin Register of Deeds Association have worked so long to get this into law. It only took 87 years to get the law passed." And he said, "You sure you don't want to take advantage of that?" He said, "You don't need to work your whole life. Just work till you're 80. But this is one time I'm not going to take his advice. But anyway, I do want to announce that Jerry Campbell, who is my chief deputy, and she has been a part of the Register of Deeds team for the past 21 years, and she is well qualified to be the next Register of Deeds for St. Croix County. We'll be campaigning for the position, and I just want to make it known I'm endorsing her, and I ask for your support for her too. We couldn't have accomplished all the progress that we've done in the office in these past years without the expert guidance and help from Tom Boron and his excellent staff. So I want to thank them. I also want to thank the administration, the Planning and Zoning Committee, and all of you supervisors. You've been a great support these past years. And I have appreciated having this opportunity to be part of the Register of Deeds team for 31 years and to serve the residents of St. Croix County for these past 14 years. It's been an enjoyable and memorable journey. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm glad to try to answer them. Yes, Mr. Martinson.
Yeah, I noticed in the total revenue column, 2007, and you compare it with 2005, or in that category, the revenue is down. What do you attribute to that change?
A lot of it is the real estate transfer return or fees because there has not been the sale of property in the county. So the transfer fees are down. And if you look at the, let's see, on the back of the green sheet, the second green sheet, then I've broken it down by the different categories for the land records fees, for the transfer fees, and so you can see, you know, the different areas where the amounts are down. And we do have less real estate documents recorded. Yes.
I just wanted to compliment you on your staff. They help a lot of confused people who don't know their way around the office, and they're very gentle with them.
Thank you. Yes, I'm appreciative of them. They do an excellent job. Yes, thank you.
The last thing is the Veteran Services Officer. One more. That's it.
Well, my name is Merlin Blaisdell, and I just started this job on the 31st of December, so I can give you a report on one day of last year, but mostly it's orange. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you folks for supporting veterans in St. Croix County, and I'm looking forward to that continued support. As you know, people are getting older, and so 65 years and older are becoming a bigger part of our community, and those veterans are important folks, and we shouldn't forget them. I want to make sure that you're aware that the 128th is going to be redeployed again this next year, and they'll be leaving sometime, I'm thinking, in the spring, so I'll try to keep you informed on that. I want to thank Lauren for this smooth transition that we've made from him to me, and I want to thank my staff. Wanda and Linda are wonderful people, and so if there's anything that you would like to know from me, I'm here for you to ask that question, and I'm not going to read the report for you. You have it. So anything that you can think of that you want to ask, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Thanks, Merlin.
Thank you.
Are there, the county clerk's head, do you have some reports?
I just have correspondence.
Okay.
I don't have a report for rezonings, but I do have correspondence. I believe the individual's name is Paul Graves or Paul Groves, and I'll just summarize his letter. He is asking, suggesting and encouraging that the St. Croix County set up a program and a collection of unused pills and drugs so they are not being put into the wastewater to enter our streams, rivers, and groundwater. He's also indicating that it's a good idea. He thinks it's a good idea that, and he hopes that St. Croix County will do so. and set this up, but also would hope that the St. Croix County can support and encourage another bridge to cross over 94 somewhere halfway between the Carmichael Bridge and the 11th Street Bridge. Would very likely reduce the congestion on Carmichael Road and bridge area. This idea proposed by Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and he says thank you. His name is Paul Graves. And other than that, just a reminder, if you haven't gotten your badges, to do that. If you didn't bring in your badges for updating, please do that. I need your yellow supervisor sheets. Deadline is Monday the 21st. And don't forget, on the back of it is a committee, any interest in any committees, and that's helpful for the chair and the vice chair. And I had a whole list of things to say. I think we've kind of gone through that. So anyway, if you have any questions, please stop into my office.
The only other thing is the elected committees need to get your dates of the next meeting put together. So someone on your committee, whoever's in charge presently, can do that or was in charge before. But somebody on the committee, and I'll probably be calling to make sure that someone on there is getting that done. Okay, get your next meeting date set up. And we got a short announcement from John Mortensen, and then we're going to adjourn.
Okay. 50/60s dinner dance. It'd be held at Randy's on 65 and G. Entertainment and dancing. And we have 2 comedians for entertainment. We have the Trigger Happy Music Group. You know, lots of good music. The dinner is roast beef, stuffed chicken, and all the trimmings. Let us help continue to support the veterans' benefits. And give me a call, and tickets are $40 per person for the evening. Wonderful evening coming up. May 2nd. May 2nd.